Welcome back. We're going to continue on with chapter 3, and we are just going to go ahead and make a histogram in this video. I'll do another video for a stem and leaf plot and a third one to make a box plot, probably all with the same set of data. So for our histogram, there's a few things that we need to do first. We'll need to calculate our range. We'll need to know our sample size. And then we need to calculate the number of classes or the number of bins or the number of bars, whatever you want to call this or think about it, in our histogram. And to do that, we'll take the square root of our sample size and we'll just round it up to the nearest whole number, right, to make sure we get a nice whole number worth of bars. We can't have 3.5 bars or 4.5 bars, right? We need to have a whole number worth of bars. And then the other thing we need to do is figure out how skinny or how wide we want those bars to be, right? Do we want our range to be from 0 to 10,000 and then from 10,000 to 20,000 like we saw in our example of salaries in a couple of videos ago? Or do we want it to be smaller, right? Do we want the width to be from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and so on, right? So to do that, all we are going to do is divide our range, right, which is the max minus the min. We're going to divide that by the number of classes. So we'll get the whole spread of our data, right, divided by how many bins or how many bars we're going to put it in. Okay? So normally if we were in class, right, I might ask the class, how many flights have you been on? And go around and record everyone's answers. But since we are online, I've got some numbers here, somewhat randomly. So actually the first thing we really need to do to kind of help us is put this data in order, right? So that we can make sense of it. It's not quite as applicable for the histogram as it is for our box plot or maybe our stem and leaf plot. But it will help us nonetheless, right, to find our range per se, right? We need to find the maximum value in this list, subtract it from the minimum value in our list. So we could go through, right? So here's one, so I could rewrite this, right? Do one, go back through. Here's a 6, an 8, there's a 4, so that might be the next smallest, right? Might cross these off as well as just as I go. So if I go back through, there's a 9, that's 6, 8, oh, there's a 5. 5's right after 4, right? And then I know I had the 6 and the 8. I don't think I saw any 7s, right? Right, I could continue doing this until we got all the way to our biggest number, which might be this 80. Right, so just for the interest of time, I've actually gone ahead and sorted these from smallest to largest. Let me see if I can move that just a little bit. Right, so the first thing we want to calculate is our range. This is the largest value minus the smallest, right? This is pretty easy. So our largest value is 80. Our smallest is 1. So this is going to be 79. it'll be helpful to know our sample size, right? So let's count how many um, numbers we have, how many data points we have, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 is what I count. And notice we have some duplicate numbers, right? We've got 3 11s. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 25. So all that means is that if we were to actually do this, right, there were 3 people in class, all who had taken 11 flights, right? And so we didn't just write 11 down once for all 3 of them. We wrote it down once for each of the students, right, that applied to. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is figure out how many bars we need, right? And so to do that, number of bars, right, for our histogram. And that is just going to be equal to the square root of 5. This is the square root of our sample size, right? Oh, I'm sorry. It's the square root of 25, which is our sample size. And the square root of 25 is 5. I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the width of our bars is just going to be our range, right? It's going to be the 79 divided by 5. We'll probably have to round here. 79 divided by 5. It's going to be 15.8. So let's call it, let's round here. And we'll call this a width of 16, okay? It was really 15.8. Okay. All right, so now we have everything we need to calculate our histogram. So let's go ahead and draw it. We're going to start at 0. Let's try to make these good size. We'll go out to 16, right? Because that is our width, right, of 16. Sixteen plus 16 is our 32. And then 32 plus 48. 32 plus 16 is 48. 48 plus 16 is, I believe it's 64. Let's see, fix this. 64. And then our very last one, 64 plus 16 is 80. 48 plus 16 plus 16 will take us all the way to 80. So now we just simply count, right, how many values we had between each of our class widths. So from 0 to 16, looks like we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so let's say this is 5, call this 10, call this 15. So 12 would be somewhere around here. Remember our histogram. Our bars will all touch. No, I'm not drawing this very well. So now let's see how many numbers we had between 16 and 32. So 20 is our first number that's greater than 16. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 here that are less than 32 but greater than 16. So we'll put this a little closer to the 10. No, this isn't drawn very well. So how many do we have between 32 and 48? We have only 1, 2, right, between 32 and 48. So 2 will be somewhere down here. All right, how many do we have between 48 and 64? We only have 1. We have a 50, right? So 1, do this, and then between 64 and 80, we have 1 back up to 2. So this would be our histogram for this data set. Pretty easy. We'd want to give this a title, right? Number of lights we'll say per student. It's not really a great title. This we want to label as our, call that freak for short, for frequency, right? In this down here, we need to label this as well. Remember to label everything. This is number of lights. And that is a histogram for that data set. All right, so our next video, we will talk about how to make a box plot or a stem and leaf plot for the same data set.